गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीवन, कैसे हैं आप सब। वेलकम टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल एंड आई एम योर एजुकेटर विमल गुप्ता एंड टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू स्टार्ट विद द ब्रेन रिमूवल. So first of all, I'll tell you that this structure is called as calvaria and these are the lines marked to remove the brain. Now how these lines are marked? These two lines are marked by taking these following points. These are called as the supraorbital margins. 1 centimeter point is taken above the supraorbital margin and another point is taken. This is called as the external occipital protuberance, which is nothing but the most protuberant point on the human skull located posteriorly. This is called as the external occipital protuberance. So two points are taken anteriorly, 1 centimeter above the supraorbital margin, and posteriorly we have the external occipital protuberance. We will join these 2 points and we will use the dissection saw to remove the skull cap. So now you will see the dissection saw. This is the dissection saw used to cut the skull cap. So we will take the maximum margin as possible so that we can remove the brain easily. After we use the skull, after we use the saw, we finally use the chisel and hammer. This is the chisel and hammer so that the saw does not penetrate into the brain and cut the brain. We used the chisel and hammer to remove the rest of the skull cap to prevent the injury to the brain. Now this is, you can see we have removed the skull cap, and finally you can see this structure, this whitish structure is called as the duramater. This is the layer which covers the brain. This is the outermost layer which is further divided into two layers, outer and osteal layer and inner meningeal layer. This we can see is the end osteal layer. This whole is the end osteal layer which lies inside the skull cap. This is called as end osteal because it is stuck to the ostium, that is bone. So that is why this is called the end osteal. As the cadaver is lying in the prone position, we can see these two markings. These two are the branches of the middle meningeal artery. This is a point which is called as pterion, and deep to the pterion lies the two branches of the middle meningeal artery. This one is the posterior branch, and you can see this is the posterior branch, and this is another branch which is going anteriorly. This is the anterior branch of the middle meningeal artery. This is very important. When there is an injury at this point, at the pterion, it results in extradural hemorrhage. Why extradural hemorrhage? Because the artery is lying outside the dura mater. That is why it results in extradural hemorrhage. To take out the brain, first of all we have to incise this covering, this dura mater. So we will give the two paramedian incisions to remove the dura mater. So we will give the two paramedian incisions. You can see that the two paramedian incisions are being given. This is dura mater. This is one paramedian incision, and we can see this is another paramedian incision given. Paramedian means not in the center, on the sides of the center. So these are the coronal incisions also given. So two paramedian and two coronal, and all are being reflected. So after reflection you can see the sulcuses and gyruses of the brain. So this is the brain and these are the sulcuses and gyruses, you can see, and this layer is again the dura mater. Now there are two cerebral hemispheres, one is right and one is left cerebral hemisphere, and in between them this structure is the dura mater, which contains a fold of the dura mater called as the falx cerebri, which lodges the superior sagittal sinus. Now I am going to show you a fold. This is falx cerebri. Falx cerebri lies between these two cerebral hemispheres. It is a meningeal fold of the dura mater. Now you can see I am stripping off this dura mater, and you can see this sickle shape fold. This sickle shape fold, this is called as the falx cerebri. Falx means it is a sickle shape fold lying between the two cerebral hemispheres in the median longitudinal fissure, and this lodges a sinus. This bluish shaped sinus is called as the superior sagittal sinus. This is named as the superior because all these veins which are coming from the superior lateral surface, they are finally draining where they are draining into the superior sagittal sinus, which is a sinus present in the falx cerebri. Now we have removed the falx cerebri, and you can see this is the sulcuses and gyruses. This one is sulcus and this is the gyrus of the brain. So you can see this layer. which is bridging all the sulcus and gyruses, this shiny layer. This layer is called as the arachnoid matter, which lies deeper to the duramater. It is the second layer of the covering of the brain. Outside we have duramater, then inside we have the arachnoid matter, and third is piamater, which cannot be stripped from the brain. Now you can see again, this is the duramater, which was the endosteal layer, and I'll show you, this is again the falx cerebri, which was a sickle-shaped fold present between the two cerebral hemispheres, and this layer which was bridging over the sulcuses and gyruses, this was the arachnoid matter, and the third layer which was piamater, this is arachnoid. The piamater, you cannot separate it. If I'll try to remove the piamater, it will remove the brain tissue itself. It is highly stuck to the brain. Now we have removed the brain with the help of the finger dissection. Slowly and steadily and very carefully we have removed the brain, because the brain tissue is very soft. It is very delicate, and finally the brain is taken out very carefully. And see, this is the brain, and the leftover structures are nothing but the covering of the brain, mainly the dura mater. Now we can see all the folds very clearly. Actually there are 4 folds of dura mater. One is falx cerebri, tentorium cerebelli, and diaphragm sella. So you have already seen the falx cerebri. Now you can see the whole of the cranial cavity. The brain has been removed and only the folds of the dura mater are being left behind. We will discuss it in detail. So why the cranial cavity is divided into many compartments? The main function is to support the brain, to fix the brain into proper areas so that the brain does not get injured during the forceful movements. As the brain is a very delicate tissue, it can get injured easily. So these folds, they provide the proper space to the brain and proper fixicity to the brain into proper compartments. Guys, now we can appreciate another fold of the dura mater. This is called as the tentorium cerebelli. We have the right and the left tentorium cerebelli, and in between them, this structure which I am showing is called as the tentorial notch, which lodges the brain stem. This fold is called as the tentorium cerebelli. Now you can see the 3 cranial fossa. This one is the anterior cranial fossa, middle, and this is the posterior cranial fossa, where the tentorium cerebelli is present. Actually what happens, the tentorium cerebelli divides the posterior cranial fossa into 2 compartments. 2 कंपार्टमेंट कौन से है? ऊपर वाला, ये ऊपर वाला कंपार्टमेंट इज कॉल्ड एज द सुप्राटेंटोरियल, और अंदर वाला, नीचे वाला इज कॉल्ड एज द इंफ्राटेंटोरियल कंपार्टमेंट. इंफ्राटेंटोरियल कंपार्टमेंट में होती है ब्रेन स्टेम एंड द सेरिबेलम, और सुप्राटेंटोरियल में होता है ब्रेन का ऑक्सीपिटल लोब, विच लाइज मोस्ट पोस्टीरियरली. Now we are heading on to the third fold, which is called as the falx cerebelli. This sickle shaped fold is called as the falx cerebelli. ऊपर वाला था cerebri, ये है cerebelli. ये भी सिक्कल शेप्ड फोल्ड है, किसके बीच में 2 cerebellar hemispheres. यहाँ दोनों जगह पे the 2 cerebellar hemispheres are lodged, and the falx cerebelli lies between these 2 cerebellar hemispheres and contains a venous sinus, which is called as the occipital venous sinus. This is very important. So another fold we can see, this fold is called as the diaphragm sella. This structure is called as sella turcica. Sella turcica, and बीच में जो गड्ढा दिख रहा है, this is called as pituitary fossa. इस पिट्यूटरी फॉसा को कवर करता हुआ जो चौथा फोल्ड है, द फोर्थ फोल्ड विच कवर्स द पिट्यूटरी फॉसा, इज कॉल्ड एज द डायफ्राम सेला. This diaphragm sella has a small hole in between which allows the passage of the pituitary stalk. Pituitary stalk is being connected to the hypothalamus, and below we have the pituitary, and the diaphragm sella actually covers the pituitary fossa, and in the center there is a hole for the transmission of the pituitary stalk. Now we will study the cranial fossa and the cranial nerves. This is anterior, this is middle, and this one is the posterior cranial fossa. We can see, and we can also see several nerves which are emerging out. कई सारी nerves. ये center में है crista gyli. This is a bony elevation, and on either sides there are the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone. Cribriform मतलब छलनी. Actually ये cribriform plate of ethmoid bone से आती हैं. Olfactory जो first cranial nerves है, नाक से शुरू होती हैं, और क्रिब्रीफॉर्म प्लेट ऑफ एथमॉइड को ट्रेवर्स करती हुई इट एंटर्स द ब्रेन बाय फॉर्मिंग द olfactory bulb and olfactory tract. So first nerve is the olfactory nerve. This is the second cranial nerve which is called as the optic nerve. Optic nerve second cranial nerve है, optic canal से आती है, eyeball से sensations, brings the sensation from the eyeball to the occipital. You can see this cranial nerve. This is the third cranial nerve. Third cranial nerve का नाम है oculomotor. Oculomotor means it is motor to the extraocular muscles. It is called as oculomotor nerve. A fourth cranial nerve दिखाता हूँ which is being dissected on the right side. इस side में it is being dissected. You can see on lifting up this small nerve, छोटी सी जो nerve इसके नीचे दिखाई दे रही है, this small nerve is the fourth cranial nerve which is called as the trochlear nerve. The name of the nerve is trochlear, and this nerve is called as the trigeminal. This nerve is called trigeminal because it has three divisions, that is ophthalmic, maxillary and mandibular division. अब ये nerves को हमने नंबर कैसे दिया, ऊपर से नीचे. जब हम ऊपर से नीचे आते हैं from front to the back, तो these nerves are given name 1 2 3 4 and 5 until the 12. This nerve you can see पतली सी small nerve. This is the sixth cranial nerve which is called as abducent. And we can see just this is the petrous part of temporal bone, and below we have the opening. This is the internal acoustic meatus जहाँ पे internal ear होता है. And here we have two nerves, that is 7th and 8th cranial nerve. 7th one is called as facial and 8th cranial nerve is called as vestibulocochlear nerve. These two are the nerves related to petrous part of the temporal bone and the internal acoustic meatus. And just below there we can see three nerves, 9th, 10th and 11th. Actually this is the region of the jugular foramen. The three nerves are 9th, 10th and 11th nerve. Actually this is the spinal part of the accessory nerve. Accessory is the 11th, which has two parts, one is cranial and one is spinal. This was the spinal part. And finally this is the last nerve which you are able to see. This is the hypoglossal nerve, which is related with the muscles of tongue. It supplies the muscles of the tongue and motor to them. Now we can see these two arteries. One is this artery and one is this. These are actually two vertebral artery which joins to form the basilar artery.